Hello, everyone, and welcome to Beginnings, the show that asks, where do creative people come from? My name is Andy. I'm the host of the show and a writer and performer based in Los Angeles, California. Let's skip all the cynical stuff. The world sucks. Everything's terrible. Mabel had a scratched cornea, but hey, went to the vet today, totally healed. So, one good thing in this world, two good things in this world, today's episode, because today I'm talking to Daniel Warren Johnson, and if you don't know who he is, I'm going to read you his bio right now. Originally from Massachusetts, I think Framingham, originally from Massachusetts, comics creator. Hey, let me amend that. Eisner Award-winning comics creator Daniel Warren Johnson started in the world of cartooning with his webcomic Space Mullet, which ran from 2012 to 2017. This led to work at Dark Horse, and eventually Image published his comic Extremity, which netted him an Eisner Award nomination. Parentheses, he would go on to win 4 for other things. End parentheses. End parentheses. Since then, he's created a number of other series for Image, including Murder Falcon, Do a Powerbomb, and his latest, The Moon is Following Us. In addition, Daniel is writing and doing some of the art for the new Transformers series for Skybound, and it's a delight. I've been reading Transformers, that's what first turned me on to Daniel's work, and it's doing exactly what I want from a Transformers title, which is giving me that hit of nostalgia, but at the same time, making it for an adult. I don't mean that the robots have sex. That's not what I'm saying, people. I'm just saying the storytelling and the emotional content of the characters is adult. On top of that, I really love Daniel's artwork, so I reached out, and we recorded this back in mid-January, after the fires kind of got under control. This would have been released a lot earlier, but the fires really threw off. Who knew having fires rage through the city you live in for weeks on end would throw off your podcast schedule? But I mentioned in here, I guess there was a constitutional crisis in Minnesota at the time. I can't even remember what that is. There's a fucking constitutional crisis every day now. So whatever was going on in January is just completely dropped out of my brain. But it was an absolute delight to talk to Daniel. He's such a kind-hearted, soft-spoken guy, thoughtful. We really get into a lot of aspects of his childhood. He grew up evangelical. We talk about that, and homeschooled. So I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I enjoyed talking to Daniel. Coming up on the show, just a quick couple sneak peeks at who's on the show coming up. Anders Nilsson, if we're talking about comics. I've got Anders Nilsson coming up. I talked to Kelly Sue DeConnick. That was fantastic. From the world of music, Tina Halliday. From Sheer Mag, John Davis of Folk Implosion, Kristen Hirsch of Throwing Muses. Those were all fantastic conversations, so stay tuned for those. But for now, let's talk to Dan.
I am paying attention to you, but I'm also finishing my page. So,
oh wow, yes, no.
I'm here. I'm present, but shit's got to get done.
Wow, that is a dedicated work ethic.
No, it's probably unhealthy. But you know what it is? I'm in Chicago, and I have what time is it now? 7:37, 7:40. So I am basically, after this, I don't want to work late. I want to spend time with Rachel and my kids or whatever, right? And get me just drawing late just gets in the way of everything good in my life. So I just refuse to do it. So however, drawing during a podcast, I'm so sorry. I'll do anything. There's nothing that I will not stoop to make sure that I don't have to draw late. And it's little chill stuff. It's little tick marks on brick and stuff. So it's something I've done all the hard work, but now it's just the little things to make it sing that just require a little extra love.
Yeah. Okay. Well, here's a question then.
Okay.
This is a good place to start. Hey, look, honestly, the stuff that was swirling around in my head about how bleak shit is, there's like a constitutional crisis going on in Minnesota at the moment. So, like, I'm glad.
Oh, what's going on in Minnesota?
I saw a headline right before we started, and I just said,
Oh, okay.
It just like, I was just like, oh, okay. So this is, okay. So all the authoritarian things are really just like a little bit
Happening.
here, a little bit there, a little spice here, a little spice there, and then it's all good.
Yeah.
It's all going to add to the delicious fascist stew that we're going to be forced down. That's going to be forced down our throats. But okay, but let's not go there. But I find this interesting. Once making art, once comic books, once it became a career, is there still joy? Or is it now like, well, I got to get this done. It's got to happen. I'd rather spend time with my family than have to draw Optimus Prime or whatever. Like, let's just do this.
So we're recording now?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Dude, there's 100% still joy. And sometimes I have to be a little more intentional with my thought process about making things for a living. And sometimes it means that I need to be very careful with how I structure my time regarding the kind of work that I've chosen to do. When I first started my career, there was a lot of joy, but I was also I was working way too much. Like I was working on the weekends. I was working way too late, all night, all day, because I was like, this is the grind. This is what I have to do. You know, as a working artist, this is what's important. And I found that I would just burn myself out and I wouldn't really able to get anything done. And I just get discouraged a lot of the time. So I found the only way to keep the joy is to have a healthy relationship with it. It's like too much of a good thing. It's like eating too many cupcakes can really mess you up. And so me drawing too much and making too many things, it's, you know, there's that, I don't know what it's called now, the grind mentality that I'm not sure who has it. I mean, I think every generation has struggled with some version of that, you know, since the dawn of time. And it's not healthy. You know, it's like, what am I chasing? I have this, like you said, you know, the world feels like it's kind of going to hell. And it's like, what do I do? Do I just like make more money? But if the world really does go to hell, then I'm just going to die because I have nothing to offer the world that's not, you know, drawings on paper. And I just need to come to terms with that and be at peace with it. But all that to say, you know, like there's this kind of, I don't want to get too philosophical, but I do think there is a unhealthy relationship to art, to the working artist kind of thing. Like, and so that means like I never draw on the weekends unless I'm drawing for fun. Sometimes I paint on the weekends for fun. That's actually really a blast. I'm really into like plein air painting. Like
Wait,
painting.
what's that?
Oh, it's like when you like take your paints outside and you paint outside. It's very hard for me to make time for. I have two children that are under the age of 7 that, you know, no way are they going to like, you know, give me enough space to like, you know, get a painting done.
Sure.
I did it a bunch during COVID. I would go out to around my neighborhood in Chicago. There was the place we were staying, Andersonville, just beautiful, beautiful architecture all over, you know, old houses that stupid headphones. One sec. I bought these new, nice, expensive headphones from Sony, and then they just turn off randomly for no reason.
Dan, let me tell you. Is it Dan or Daniel? What do you go by?
My friends call me Dan. Call me Dan.
Dan, let me tell you this. I had bought a fancy in quotes, but I bought the updated Zoom recorder here.
Yeah.
And it is not as good as this old one that we bought back in 2018. It's just, I'm generally not someone who's like against technology, obviously.
Sure. Yep.
But something has happened in our culture where everyone's just like, fuck it, you have to buy this anyway. So we'll just make the thing that is, it's barely able to work.
Yep.
And you'll have to deal with it.
It's like this, it's like subscriber business, but you have to buy crappy products over and over.
Yeah.
Instead of a monthly fee, it's like every 2 years, it's like your microphone breaks or whatever.
Yeah. Wait, so I mean, not to interrupt your thought about the houses, but
sure.
This does bring me back to why I originally asked that question, because I think it is kind of a mind fuck to have to make art in a capitalist system, especially
It is, yes.
a collapsing capitalist system. And I have had, since moving to Los Angeles in 2017, it has
Okay.
been it has been a kind of difficult to maneuver, to figure out what do I want to make versus what will sell, because I don't come from money. I have, my wife doesn't come from money. We both have to sell things or get staffed or, whatever in order to pay our bills.
Yep.
And I'm curious, are there similar kind of pressures, or do you kind of like at this point, at least in your career, are you able to be, especially with creator-owned stuff, right? Are you able to kind of be like, well, I want to do this and I don't care if it sells or not, and you've just gotten lucky? Or have you specifically thought about like, well, I want to do this and I know it'll sell? Or have you been like, I want to do this and I don't care what happens and whatever? Like how have you thought about this, or how has it changed?
Well, I definitely care. Like I care if something sells, because the business model is to make books that do move and that people can get excited about and be in the market, and have people to read it and respond to it. So I always want that. I never have said I don't care if it sells or not. Like I want everything of mine to sell, and I will make. I'd like to hope that I don't make too big of decisions about what I make because of money. But like I for the most part, I feel like I've been pretty good about just following where my heart is at, and just hoping that people will get on board. And I think with that mindset, there has come a little bit of an acceptance, like, hey, this could all be over. This could all end. Especially in the beginning when my career was not quite set, and I was working with writers, and I'm not disparaging any of the writers that I worked with. It's just it was really hard to not get burned out when you're always constantly busting your butt for somebody else's vision.
Yeah.
So I kind of decided, I was like, I think I need to really go for broke on this writer artist combo thing, as one entity, because it's the only way I'm going to be able to, like you said, keep joy in my life and try and make a living. And if it doesn't work out, if I can only really find work with writers or whatever, I have to consider the possibility that maybe comics just isn't for me. I have to do something else. And so that was kind of my mindset as I was thinking about the possibilities of what could happen if I couldn't get one of my own things published. And this is around days of Extremity, when working on, or when pitching Extremity around, wondering if I could get it made and get somebody to partner with me, which is why I went with Skybound, because I needed somebody to kind of foot the bill.
Right.
I did, yeah. It was, I didn't necessarily want to, but I did have to. And so that was a business decision that I had to make. But it's like everything was kind of measured in the time that I was at. So I didn't have enough money to work on a project myself. I didn't have enough financial capital to just kind of work on it, publish it through Image Central. And Image Central wouldn't answer my emails anyway. So I went to Skybound, and they helped me make Extremity. And, it was a part of a time in my life when that's what needed to happen. And, we made it happen, and it was a compromise, and it's just is the way it is.
What do your parents do for a living? Because I am curious about how you were raised and what their relationship with, I want to say money, but really I just mean the kind of capitalist context that we're all in.
Sure.
Like, what was that like?
Well, when I was growing up, we didn't have a lot of money. We had a house. We were not, I wouldn't say we were without like some means. I never went hungry or anything like that. My parents, worked very hard. Before I was born, my mom was a ESL teacher. My dad was a civil engineer. He's retiring now. My mom still does, substitute teaching on the side. And, but, she was not, so, my dad made enough that my mom just took care of us. So that was a privilege in of itself there. But yeah, we never were really, were rolling in it. So, but I also had parents that were like, wanted me to go to art class and really believed in me. And they really wanted me to go to, get a degree in art education in college. So they didn't want me to just be an artist. They wanted me to have some sort of plan. They were afraid that I would maybe not have a means to pay the bills.
Mm-hmm.
So I did do that, but yeah.
By just an artist, and for the listener, that was in quotes. Do you mean just
Thank you.
someone who I'm trying to even think about, like a gallery artist who is just like trying to sell a painting, or like an artist for hire? Like, what did you mean by the kind of asterisked artist?
Well, I didn't really know, because I didn't know enough about the arts or about the entertainment arts, I should say, to really even have a dream. I mean, I knew I loved comic books, but that just felt like such a pipe dream.
Sure.
And I didn't have the foresight to think like, okay, I should go to a convention and talk to artists. I remember I wrote a letter to Marvel when I was very young, maybe 13 or something, and they never wrote back. Or maybe they did. I can't remember. No, I think I just wrote them a letter and they just never got back to me. I was very young. My art was not good. So going to college, it just felt like, okay, well, maybe this is just part of growing up. Like I just have to kind of be okay with not doing that kind of thing. And it's just like I was in high school and I was just, putting one foot in front of the other. I didn't really start having dreams until a year or so into college, when I started really kind of sizing up the fact like, okay, I need to have a job. I need to figure out what I'm going to do as an adult. And maybe, I remember looking at the art of the Lord of the Rings book. I have it on my shelf with John Hamm and John Howe and Alan Lee and John Howe. Sorry. These two conceptual artists that, Peter Jackson hired to do all this world building for Lord of the Rings. And I was just blown away. I'd never really realized like, oh, somebody had to design all of the things that I see in these fantasy and sci-fi films. And so that's what really got me started on the idea of like, hey, maybe I could do this for a living. And it wasn't comics. It was like conceptual art and design. That's what really got me excited. And then I got back into comics in college. I could kind of fallen out of love with them in late high school because I wanted to be cool,
Sure.
And comics weren't cool back then. So
also, what period is this? If you're born in 86, right?
87.
87. All right.
This is like, I was 16 in 2003.
Yeah, it wasn't the greatest era
of comics.
Yeah.
Or life.
Both. Oh, well, I mean, maybe the quality of comics mirrored how terrible the Bush era was. So maybe there's.
I was in college when Civil War was happening. That was a really big deal. And it went from that to Secret Invasion. And I was like, this is not as good. But Civil War was great. I really loved Civil War. And that was really fun. I remember getting into Hellboy when I was in college. That was a big deal.
Yeah.
I was a friend. His name was Tim in college. We just kind of got to talking. And he's like, you never read Hellboy before? I was like, no, sorry. I've read Bone. He's like, Bone's cool. But, dude, you got to check out Hellboy. And he kind of opened my eyes to like all these different comic books and like stuff that wasn't superhero comics too. He was the one that like showed me Invincible and The Walking Dead, and which was really popular at the time, like 05. That's when things were really picking up steam. And I remember I met Robert Kirkman at a signing, and I gave him a drawing of a zombie. I drew him as a zombie, and he had an axe in his head, and he saw it. He's like, why am I still walking? I got an axe in my head. And that's what I remember about my 2005 interaction with Robert Kirkman. But yeah, but my parents were always very supportive of me, and like my parents did have enough money, where like if I was really in a bind, I could stay with them. It's not like I had to like get a job when I was 16 in order to help pay the mortgage. So I owe them a lot. And yeah. So capitalism, I don't know. That's a heavy question, but we can go there.
Well, let me start with this then. Could your parents have made more money? Because I think about this with my wife and I, where we're like, I can't understand the people who have tens and hundreds and thousands of millions of dollars and who are like, well, I need more of this because we're doing fine. And I'm like, I don't know what else other stuff we could want. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like,
Yeah.
it's a nice existence. What other what is so wrong inside these people like Elon Musk or Bezos or any of these people, right? Where it's just this, I want to believe it's just this absolute emptiness. I don't know what their lives are like. I don't know I can only see the things that they do with their lives,
Sure.
which seem sad as fuck. Like, I remember one time there was some video, this is like years and years ago, of Elon Musk's kitchen, and it looks so shitty. And I was like, you have billions of dollars and you have the shittiest looking kitchen I have ever seen in my life. What is wrong with you? And that's just like, I mean, that's the most boring, basic example of
Sure.
how empty these people are. But like, why I ask, could your parents have made more money? Or were they just like, hey, we have enough. We're happy.
My parents were pretty happy. My dad didn't have that weird hunger that you are talking about. I'm not sure. I mean, I've never actually asked them this question, so I don't want to assume too much, but they just always seemed very content to me. And yeah, so I would hope that went down to the next generation. I am quite happy with where I am. So I really love what I do, and I wouldn't want to change my career so I could have a different financial lifestyle. I can't imagine doing that. That just sounds like it would be really miserable. So having kids though, there is an intense urge to provide.
Sure.
But at the same time, it can be a good thing or it can be a negative thing. Something that is healthy, but too much of anything can be really dangerous. So I have a tendency to want to, Gringotts bank it, and just, but money is, it's just something that the culture believes in. And it's important to remember, it can all go away in a second. And then what did I work for?
That's exactly what I'm trying to kind of uncover, because I'm wondering.
In turn, because that's something that also I would hope, kind of helps my mentality with my art is, hey, this can all go up at any moment. I got to make sure that what I'm working on matters and that I feel good about it. And, hopefully other people will have the same. Hopefully there are other people out there in the world that will have the same kind of reaction to my work that I have, that I feel like the world needs this story, or I feel like this is something that maybe the readers haven't seen yet. And I have something to offer, I think. And, just got to put it out there, see what happens.
Yeah. Do you think you had that sense of meaningfulness when you were younger, or that sense of, if maybe not that, I think that when I make something, I make something because I don't think it exists in the world and I want to see it. Right. Okay. I'm not I think there's a way you can navigate Hollywood where you're just like, all right, well, what's popular? I'm going to do iteration X of that and see if I can sell it. Whereas, and maybe I could be more successful if I wanted to do that, but I think it's more fun and more meaningful, and I enjoy it more if I'm just like, well, what haven't I seen and what do I think is meaningful? And I'll try to do that and see what happens from there.
All I can tell you is that that's what I do. I'm not really reading the cultural tea leaves and what seems to be popular. I just kind of feel what needs to come next. And, a wrestling book is not exactly a moneymaker. Or, it's like something that you kind of have to just hope that the culture is ready for. So, and at the same time, I don't really feel like I've tried to play the hits. When DC offered me a bunch of different A-list superheroes to work on for a Black Label book, I picked Wonder Woman. The historically bronze character when it comes to making money. But it just felt right. I wasn't thinking well, this won't make any money. I was like, hey, I think I got this really cool Wonder Woman comic idea. and I want to do this. And Batman and Superman have already been done perfectly. So what am I going to add?
Okay, then where did that instinct develop? Because I think there is something, I think about a lot of people who I've known in my life who like hit a zeitgeist, hit something there. And then it carried them. Abby and Alana, for example, right? They just Broad City just hit at the right time. And there was there's some feeling they had in the air. And you didn't know, like, there was no, like, certainty, like, this is going to. But there was definitely, like, well, there's something. There's some feeling here that we're latching on to that we can write. And I'm wondering, to have that feeling, you have to be kind of attuned to what's going on around you. And I'm wondering where that sense in you developed, like, when you were younger.
I don't know if I have that sense, though. I mean, I wouldn't look to myself for figuring out like what's cool or what's good. I feel like I have really great taste, but by no means do I consider myself a taste maker.
But wait, can I interrupt you?
Sure.
It doesn't. I don't even necessarily mean good or like cool. I just mean like it. There is some vibe in culture that you are catching, and I think to catch that you have to be aware. And I'm wondering, like, when you were younger, were you an interior person? Were you aware of the world and kind of like keyed in?
No, I was homeschooled. So I was very sheltered.
I read that, but like, where did this develop then? And I want to go back to that, but like, where did you develop a kind of like feeling about the world?
Man, dude, I mean, like, I'm very flattered, but I just don't agree. I don't know that I have it. I just like my biggest take when it comes to entertainment these days is that things go on for too long, and everybody's sick of it, and nobody wants the origin story in 10 episodes. They want an origin story in one episode, and then get to the good stuff. So maybe if I'm tuned into one thing, it's that, because everybody's fed up with it, and Hollywood has no idea. They're just doing the same damn thing over and over again. But that's the only thing that I can think I've got my finger on the pulse on. Everything else, I have no idea what I'm doing. And it's not me being, what's
self-deprecating?
Different. Yeah, it's not like being humble or whatever. It's like just the truth.
Yeah, but you are self-aware, and I think that is more what I'm kind of trying to grasp. Right?
Okay.
Even if you said you had like a sheltered childhood, right? You are a self-aware person.
Sure.
So where does that develop?
You mean like self-aware? Can you, in this context, would you mind defining self-awareness?
Yeah, you know yourself. You know yourself in a way, and you're able to articulate these kinds of things about yourself in a way where you're not. Sometimes I'll have a guest and they're kind of stumped as we're talking. I'm like, you've never had to think. You've never been forced to think about these things, And maybe it's just like you've always thought about. You've always been kind of attuned in a way.
Okay.
And maybe it was like maybe therapy, for example, later on in life. I don't know. That's why I'm kind of curious.
I just know I don't know. When I watch something or read something, I feel very confident when I say it's good or it's bad that I'm right. So I don't know if that helps. And then my friends like try and tell me that like something was good, and I'm like, nope, that was not good. So I argue with my friends about it all the time, and so there's that. But I don't know. I just knew when I fell in love with, when I love something, it feels good. It feels right. It feels like it should have always been there. It feels like just like when I saw Dune, the first Dune, I saw it getting panned by some. I mean, like there's some critics that liked it, but there was a lot of critics that didn't like it. They're like, it's like dumb Star Wars, big money. I was like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, this is special. Like 3 minutes just dedicated to a ship basically rising out of the water. Like, get out of here. Like this is the kind of stuff that's going to change lives. It changed my life. It got me back on the horse of making sci-fi stuff. So thank you. I don't know how to pronounce your name, Denise.
Yeah.
I owe you, bro. If he ever listens to this podcast, or whatever, like, I'm going to meet that man someday. I'm going to thank him for keeping my faith in storytelling alive in Hollywood.
Uh-huh. Well, okay. So then in a sense it feels intuitive to you, right? Because if you're just like, yeah, I just have this kind of instinct. It's not a
Mhm.
conscious thing. It's not like you're not like sitting there and mulling it over. It is just
Sure.
like a feeling inside of you. And I guess what I'm pushing more is, okay, well, that is to be self-aware of your own body and your own feelings. You know, I grew up very repressed, and I grew
Okay.
up in a way where I was not acknowledging these kinds of things.
Mm.
And I'm kind of curious, did you grow up were your parents emotional people? Were you okay with having emotions, with talking about emotions in your family?
Yeah, I think so. If anything, I grew up in a very not unhealthy, but it was like a pretty conservative Christian home.
Hmm.
So, there was that element of it, which is, something that I've thought a lot about as an adult and had to come to terms with on my own. But as far as like feelings go, things were pretty normal. I grew up in Massachusetts, so there were some homeschooling families that were a little odd, a little out there. And I always felt like my family was like pretty darn well adjusted because my mom grew up my mom, had the history of like teaching in public education. She always, she loved public school. I just wasn't doing well there. And my parents were like, let's try, my mom was like, I'm a teacher. Let me try and teach him. And sure enough, it just one thing led to another. And my parents did ask me when I came around to high school time, they were like, do you want to go to high school? And I was like, I think I'm just doing good, you know, doing this. So I was definitely sheltered, but I didn't feel depressed. But that's just me.
What flavor of Christianity?
It's like evangelical free. It's from Massachusetts, so it can't be too crazy. But there's like a reaction to all of the liberalism that was happening in Massachusetts at the time. Like gay marriage and the George W. Bush era. You know, something that I was kind of like rebelling against in high school. It gave me something to push against when I was growing up. So I became a Democrat from a very early age.
How did they react to that?
My mom and dad were really chill. My dad was like he was more conservative when I was a kid, and like he's really like come around. My mom was always just they didn't really talk about that kind of thing. And I remember my dad, like I was like really frustrated one day about like the state of the world and like nobody cares and everybody's just apathetic. I'm like 16 or 17 at the time. I'm just a complete ass. And my dad was like, well, there's a lot of people that are going through a lot of different things. And, people just don't have the space in their life to care about all the things that you think that they should be caring about. And I was like, well, whatever at the time. And then now it really resonated with me, as with a family of my own. And I'm like, oh, geez. And here I am. I got to think about the bad things that are happening in the world. Come on. Let me watch Severance. You know,
So, okay, well, they were empathetic people. I think that's where I'm like trying that's what I'm aiming towards. Your
okay.
parents, whatever, culturally conservative, politically conservative, however you're framing it, they were still empathetic people.
I would say so, yes. My dad, yeah, they were. They were just, I feel like my parents were quite well adjusted. And they just, I don't know. I feel so basic to say like I had an awesome childhood, but like my parents were amazing. They really supported me and they were just awesome. They're amazing. I mean, they're parents, they're people. They made mistakes too, but it was just great. I had a great childhood.
Yeah. What was the curriculum like?
My mom did like custom curriculum. She'd pick from different programs from different things. This is in the mid '90s. So I remember we had this book, this company, Saxon Math. That was a big one. I hated that book, but it was an all-in-one, going through basic math to like algebra to the whole deal. It was a nightmare. That was a struggle. My mom trying to teach me math. My mom couldn't help it. She'd be teaching me math, and it's something that I would really struggle with. And we had to do these things called problem sets, where you learn the concept, and then of course you execute it and go through it yourself. You have to show your work. And my mom would go through with me after I'd spent maybe an hour and a half with it, and I'd get like 60 to 70% of everything wrong. And my mom could not help but to like break down into tears as she'd get this like go to everyone that's like wrong. And I was like, Mom, this stuff doesn't matter. I'm never going to use math. She's like, you have to do this so you can go to college. The stakes are very high for my mom, and so that was always a struggle. But it came from a really good place. She's very concerned for our well-being. So I don't know. So there was that.
How do you think that they became empathetic people? Like, did you see that in your grandparents? Did you know your grandparents?
Oh yeah. How did they become empathetic people? Well, I don't know, dude. How did they become empathetic? Well, I'm not sure. And in some ways, I think it's kind of like my parents' story to tell. I can only speak to it a little bit. It just, I think they both had like pretty humble childhoods, and I think they'd always knew that they kind of wanted to be parents, and I don't know. They just, they really love each other. They're really good partners. They're good problem solvers, and they really support each other well. And so I witnessed that as a kid, that felt really good to see. So I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I think you'd not to cop out, but I think you'd have to ask my parents why they're empathetic. Yeah.
Because I'm just, you take the facts about the situation and you plop them onto other people, and it sounds very severe, right? Evangelical household,
sure, yeah.
Homeschooled, right? It's definitely like the kind of facts you would hear about someone where you'd be like, oh, that doesn't sound great. But everything you've said so far paints a very, kind picture.
Yeah. I mean, well, my parents were kind, and they were good parents, and they're trying to do their best. So just like I'm trying to do my best with my kids now, I feel like, it was just, I also saw the way that they treated other people that were outside of the family. I remember my dad really cared for this guy named Ted in our community, in like our town of Framingham. Like always had trouble with the law, and he like threw a bike on a guy's car, and my dad went in to be a character witness for Ted. And I was always like, why are you helping out this guy Ted? And my dad's like, he's just had a rough go. And so that really affected me. And I never forgot the way my dad treated that guy, who was an odd duck. Ted was an odd duck. My dad just was like, I think this guy needs help. And I don't know. Yeah, the cultures, the homeschooling thing, the church thing, those were outside cultural elements which had their problems, which, my parents, when like subscribing to those things or bringing me to those things, do I think the church that I went to was the healthiest place in the world? No way. But, it was a community, and every community is going to have its problems for sure, whether it's Christian or, secular, Jewish, whatever. That doesn't really matter. When people get together to try and make something bigger than themselves, there's going to be people that get hurt. So, I don't like fault my parents for going to that church at all. I think that they were just doing their best, and yeah.
I mean, what flavor of evangelical was it to drill down just a little more? Like, was it like prosperity gospel type stuff, or was it more just kind of biblical literalism?
It was evangelical free. Have you heard of that?
No.
That's like, it's like they call it non-denominational. So it didn't really have like an alignment. And so, it was just kind of the church would kind of go with the cultural times of the conservative think tank of the 1990s, which was like, they're kind of reacting, like I said, to like all these things that were happening in the world and in Massachusetts, really. And so like we sang like, hymns and stuff, but nobody was like dancing around with snakes or speaking in tongues or anything like that.
Sure. It's Pentecostal. I may be Jewish, but I know enough to know a little bit about each little denomination.
Yeah. So like definitely, it wasn't like a terrible place or anything. It was beholden to church culture from the 90s, which was not a great place in the entire country, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Or, there's some good things about it, but it's a lot of bad stuff too.
again, walk me through. Like, what do you mean by good? I want to know the good too. Like, I like the way you seem to paint it. It gave you a moral framework. Your parents, at the very least, if not the church.
Yeah, I would not say my church really gave me a moral framework. I mean, I think it was mostly my parents, and then going to college too, where I had to make kind of what I learned in church and all those things my own, separate from my parents. I sorry. So the question you're asking me is, can you repeat it one more time?
Sure. I'm just curious about both the good and the bad. I don't want to like dwell on the bad stuff.
I got you. Well, good stuff about the church. Had some great friends. It was a social outlet, which I really needed being homeschooled. That was definitely my favorite thing about it. I got to like kind of learn how to be a teenager when I hadn't really learned how to do that yet. I kind of was a late bloomer. I was still playing with Gundams when I was like, or toys when I was 14. It's just I was still into it, and I think part of that probably because I wasn't going to public school, and I remember like playing with like kids that maybe were a little bit younger than me at this church, and I kind of became self-aware. I was like, oh wait, like all these kids are younger, they're still playing with toys. All the kids my age, they don't really want to do that. And I was like, shoot, I wonder if this is a bad thing. And I remember I brought it up to my mom. I was like, all these kids are playing with these, are not into this anymore. It's like, am I doing something wrong? My mom was like, who gives a S? She didn't say S. She's like, who cares? Like you're 14. You do what you want. Just everything's going to come in time. You're going to know when it's time to move on. And I just took her at her word, and she was right. And I had a great time. And I try to maintain that sense of play even now as an adult. And I hope my kids can hang on to that too, as long as possible. But, there are just, I don't know. Yeah, there were a lot of really loving people there that had my best intentions at heart. And so was it perfect? No, but it wasn't not evil or terrible. It's just, yeah. Again, just a kind of culturally tied to the 90s of, church 90s church.
Yeah, but I'm asking, like, what does that mean? I don't even know what that means. Besides, like,
sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. So, like, very much in line with like Bush politics. Like death penalty is fine. Sorry, we're getting political, but like, I like things that I felt were very much like went against the teachings of Jesus. That because it's America, it has this like American church politics to it. So it's like, oh, if it's for the red, white, and blue, it should be interpreted. It's like everything was kind of interpreted like the red, white, and blue was bled into the scripture, which I was like, that's ridiculous. This doesn't make any sense,
Yeah.
Even as a high schooler, I was like, this doesn't make. Why are we killing people? And then my pastor at the time would like talk about this in the sermons, and I'd be in like the kids section, where all the kids sat just fuming. Like that's not right, but and then also with like, purity culture and that whole thing, like don't have sex till you're married, that whole thing, a lot of shame, where I don't feel like that was necessary to have. So like purity culture and church, purity culture with the church in the 90s, huge. That was a huge thing, which did a lot more harm than good, I would say, especially to women in the church too. It's like it was always kind of put on ladies to dress a certain way and this whole thing. So, which I feel was very unfair. Looking back on it now, especially thinking back the way some of my friends were treated. So there was that. But again, these are things that I feel are very separate from like how my parents brought me up. So
yeah, it seems though. Well, I don't know. I was about to say it seems like that might be difficult to navigate, but I guess it wasn't. I guess you were just like, well, my parents are the ones who are the real authority, so I'm listening to them over what I'm hearing at church.
Sure. Yeah, and also like I didn't talk to my parents about sex. No way. Who does that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I got one talk in 5th grade. They answered all my questions. They were like, "How do you know about that?" And then that was the end of it. We never talked about it again.
Yeah, man.
How did the church reconcile the kind of bloodthirsty American philosophy with the stuff from the Bible? Because this has always fascinated me. No one's ever given me a good answer. I can't figure it out. How? Because I've read the New Testament. I've seen the stuff that Jesus said, turn the other cheek,
Sure.
help everyone, all the kind of stuff. And I've never, I can't figure it out how it's reconciled unless it just isn't. And it just sits there in tension with each other. But like when you were younger, how did you see, how was it explained to you?
Oh, it was just, this is the divine word of God. Why are you asking questions? That kind of vibe.
Oh.
And like, oh, well, everything was ordained and everything is the way as it is. And I'm like, I don't really think it's cool for a guy to hear from God that he's supposed to kill his son.
Right.
Like that's how you're going to prove your love. It feels really crappy. And it's something that I kind of had to figure out in college, not at my church. I had to kind of find my own journey with it. And it's a long journey. It's not one that happened overnight. But I didn't get any answers from that church. That's for sure. Yeah, they weren't really there to wrestle with problems. They were there to, read the good word, sing some hymns, and kind of stay in their lane.
How did you kind of figure it out for yourself?
I asked a lot of pastors. I asked my campus pastor at the time, Pastor Judy Howard Peterson, very cool lady, and I straight up asked her. I was like, "How can I follow this kind of faith?" And it was she had a really awesome answer. She was like, it's a really deep question that, well, I don't know. The answer that she gave me, it didn't even really matter. It's just there was a freedom there to ask the question. I wasn't told that I was like, a bad Christian, quote unquote. She just let me struggle with it, and just kind of accepted me and me kind of wrestling with it in that moment, which is something that I feel is not done enough in religious leadership, So that's a question I kept asking over and over and over to all like my, it was like my litmus test. You meet like a new pastor or whatever. Like, how do you feel about this kind of thing? And see if they can wrestle, see if they can be okay with the not knowing. And I love a religious leader that says they don't know. That's a good quality.
Okay. We're towards the end of the show, and I want to go back a little because I'm curious about how your kind of dreams or desires or things you wanted for yourself formed. Because you said earlier, you really didn't have a dream until college, and then you kind of you thought you would maybe do design, right?
Sure, yeah.
But before that, it seemed that there was a pathway to doing art in some way for you. And I'm wondering how that formed. Like, was it always art? Like going back to like, however far back you can remember, was it always art? Was there ever anything else you wanted to do?
I thought about being a youth pastor for a little bit, working with kids, but that was kind of I kind of saw what it entailed to become like a youth pastor, and I had to learn Greek, and I was like, I'm good. I'll do something else.
You have to learn Greek?
Yeah. If you're going to be a pastor, you got to learn Greek, dude.
Wait, why? I get Latin maybe. It's not Catholic, but I mean, I get something. Why Greek?
Because a lot of the New Testament was written in Greek.
Oh.
Yeah. Like a lot of the, teachings of Jesus or whatever was written in the kind of like common Greek tone. Or I don't know what the word is, but yeah, you had to learn all that. I was like, nope. Not doing that. I remember I was really into theology in college, but I wasn't that into theology. Oh my goodness, no way. So yeah, I guess so there was that, but that was just like kind of a filler. And I switched it to art education anyway by the time that I went to college. So I mean, I played a lot of guitar and I thought about maybe like doing guitar or some sort of music thing, but then I was like, you know what? I don't think I even myself, I was like, I don't think I can make money playing my guitar. So I did art education to kind of appease my parents and kind of keep them happy and like, hey, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to do art education. So that was the main thing. And then, as I got older, because I graduated college, I really didn't want to be an art teacher. Um, and I found other works by people that were more my age that were doing things that I felt were really exciting in comics. And that was when I really started wanting to get hungry for things and be like, oh, there's people that are doing it like this, like James Herron. I read The Long Death by James Herron. It changed my life. I just read that story and BPRD, The Long Death.
Mm-hmm.
I read that story and I was like, I think I need to try and make comics now, like for real. So I've always pointed to James Herron as a person. He's not. I think he's maybe a few years older than me, but without him, I don't think I'd be doing what I don't think I'd be doing this.
Okay, well, talk to me about that moment because that seems interesting. I'm assuming that it built up to this point where you read this, and I think I read that. I think I remember it, but like you read it and it changes you, right? Like
Sure.
what was it built up in you that reading this could transform you like that? Does that make sense as a question?
Yeah. Well, I think I was at that point. I had been married. I was married, and I was really unhappy as a teacher. I was a middle school art teacher. I felt very adrift, and I really hated my job, and I just wanted it to be over. Like I was just like I'd come home from work and just check out, not really engage with anyone, just have panic attacks Sunday night before school.
Mm.
Yeah, I did that a lot, and it was just a really bad situation, but I was like, I must provide, I have to like make money. And it was during that time that I read this book. And I don't know that I was necessarily looking for alternate things, but I just knew that it was special. And I think, what entered my mind is like, I didn't know comics could be this exciting, at this day and age. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Like, because that was like 2010, and there weren't that many people that were drawing that intensely, like with that insane manga element and flair and vibe that you would see a lot of in Japan, which I loved. And I just thought there wasn't a market for it. I thought that publishers didn't want to see that kind of thing, and I saw it there, and I was like, well, if you do it well enough, people will come in droves. Like, you can get a job doing BPRD comics, apparently. And that really excited me. And it was just, it's not like I went out and started doing comics the next day, but it was a big deal. It really hit me. And so when my wife said, hey, it's time to give art a try for real this time. Let's put some of our savings into this, see if it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But you got to try at least once. And so it was, James Herron and my wife.
What was it about teaching that was making you miserable? Was it something specific about the administration, the kids, the job itself, or was it that you weren't doing what you wanted to do? And if it's so, did you know you wanted to do something else?
I didn't really know. I didn't really have that in my head, I kind of fell into even thinking about the possibility of drawing for a living. At that point, I was just in survival mode, not sure how to move forward, not sure how to enjoy my life at all. I remember talking to my dad being like, how do I live when I have a job that I hate? And then do I just do this until I die? So
what was his answer?
The answer was, he said, jobs can be hard. He said, you shouldn't have to hate your job to live, but he said there's going to be times in your life where jobs are going to be hard. And you're going to go through seasons like that. And it's at those moments where you look at the people that you care for the most and you think, okay, there's a reason why I'm going to work today.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just for myself. And he's like, he said, he was like, it's easier for me to say that because I have children. You know, when work for me was really hard, I would think about how thankful I was that I got to be your dad. And that just got me right out of bed in the morning and, got me in the car, and I would drive to work, and I'd be like, hey, the lights get turned on because I'm going to work. And my dad got a lot of meaning and purpose from that. But my dad didn't hate his job, really, I don't think. I think there were some tough times, but I hated my job. And so I was like, well, I'm pretty sure Rachel will be okay if I died. Like, she's not going to be destitute. But I'll try and get into that mentality anyway. So I did that, and that helped a little. But I didn't really have any sort of dreams of being an artist at that point. But when I saw James Herron's work, I was like, I think I started dreaming again. I was like, oh my God, like somebody's actually doing this for real. And it was a special time. So I remember the first time that I met James, I told him that story and I completely freaked him out.
Really? It's such a...
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. If someone said that to me, I'd be flattered.
I think he was flattered, but it's just a lot to put on a person when you first meet him. It's like, hey, you changed my life. So I've learned since then to be a little more cool.
But wait, okay. Final question then, because you said that's really where the dream started, but then you just said, and maybe this is just the language you use. You said, I learned to dream again. Was there a point where you did have a specific want, and you just kind of had to push it down?
I mean, I had always kind of wanted to do conceptual art after college, but I remember I applied to Pixar, and they turned me down. So I have some, I was trying. I remember I was doing concept art in my spare time and reaching out to different other artists for guidance, and getting some responses back and just trying to figure it out. And nothing wasn't really clicking. So it took a real application of passion and having real financial stakes in the game from a person that really cared about me. It was me and Rachel that put our savings down together to try and make this work. So it was a lot of things that kind of came at the same time. It was like not wanting to let Rachel down, seeing how amazing art could be, with James Herron stuff, and others. I remember Guy Davis was a huge influence and a huge inspiration. And I remember emailing Guy Davis, and he emailed me back, and it was so awesome. So I'm standing on the shoulders of many people, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Dan, what a lovely place to end. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, man. Thanks for the great questions.
Yeah, of course. Did you finish your page?
I'm very close. Do you like to see it?
Sure, I'd love to.
This is from the new science fiction book I'm working on.
Oh, I love it.
There's a lady worshiping her family chainsaw.
And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye, oh, 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 bye. Bye, bye, beginnings.